King Frederik's secret love poem to Queen Mary, the most romantic royal declaration ever written. Welcome to B News. What happens when a king picks up a pen not to sign legislation or draft official proclamations, but to pour out his heart in verse to the woman he loves? On December 4, 2024, sources close to the Danish royal house have revealed something extraordinary and deeply personal. King Frederik X has written a romantic poem to Queen Mary, and while the complete text remains private between the royal couple, fragments and descriptions of this intimate declaration have begun to emerge, painting a picture of a love that has only deepened over 2 decades together. This isn't the formal, stilted language of official royal communications. This is raw emotion, genuine vulnerability, and the kind of romantic expression that reminds us that beneath the crowns and the centuries of protocol, Frederik and Mary are simply two people who found each other against impossible odds and built something beautiful together. The poem, reportedly written during a private moment of reflection as the pressures of monarchy weighed heavily upon him, represents King Frederik's attempt to express in words what 20 years of partnership, 4 children, and countless shared moments have meant to him. And even in the fragments that have been described, it's clear that this is one of the most genuinely romantic gestures any modern monarch has made, not a public relations exercise, but an authentic expression of love from a man to his wife, from a king to his queen, from Frederik to his Mary. The poem reportedly begins with a reflection on that first meeting in Sydney, that moment in the slip-in when Frederik's life changed forever though he didn't fully realize it yet. According to those who have been privileged to hear about the poem's contents, Frederik writes about walking into that crowded pub, about the noise and chaos of Olympic celebration, and about how suddenly all of that faded away when he saw Mary across the room. He describes the feeling of being drawn to her, of starting a conversation that was supposed to be casual small talk but quickly became something deeper, something that felt like recognition rather than introduction. The poem captures the extraordinary ordinariness of that moment, no fanfare, no royal ceremony, just two people connecting in the most human and universal way. Frederik writes about the gift of Mary not knowing who he was in those first hours, how liberating and terrifying it was to be seen simply as Fred, to be liked or disliked based purely on who he was rather than the title he carried. He expresses gratitude for those stolen hours when he could simply be himself, before the weight of crown and duty reasserted itself and their love story became infinitely more complicated. But before we explore more of this beautiful poem and what it reveals about Frederik and Mary's enduring love, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and have notifications turned on, because stories of genuine love and romantic expression are rare and precious, especially in the often rigid world of royalty. And if you're already moved by this glimpse into a king's heart, and we know you are, hit that like button to show your support for content that celebrates love, vulnerability, and authentic human connection. Now, let's discover what else King Frederik's romantic poem reveals about his feelings for Queen Mary. The poem's second section, according to sources, focuses on Mary's extraordinary courage in choosing to leave everything familiar and build a life in Denmark. Frederik writes with evident awe about watching Mary learn Danish, about her determination to understand Danish history and culture, about the grace with which she navigated the impossible transition from private citizen to public figure under the most intense scrutiny imaginable. The verses reportedly compare Mary to the ships of Denmark's maritime history, leaving safe harbor to navigate unknown waters, trusting in love as her compass, weathering storms that would have capsized lesser vessels. Frederik acknowledges in the poem that he asked something almost unreasonable of Mary, to give up her identity, her home, her language, her career, everything that defined her, to become part of his world. He writes about the guilt he has carried for asking so much, and about the wonder he feels that she said yes, that she continues to say yes every day, that she has not just adapted but flourished, becoming more Danish than he sometimes feels despite being born into this role. In what has been described as the poem's most emotionally powerful section, Frederik writes about Mary as a mother to their 4 children. The verses paint intimate pictures, Mary soothing a crying infant at 3 in the morning while somehow still radiating grace, Mary laughing with their children during private family moments away from cameras, Mary is the steady presence who makes their children feel safe despite the extraordinary circumstances of their lives. Mary is the bridge between the formal demands of royal childhood and the warmth and normalcy that children need to thrive. Frederik writes about watching Mary with their children and feeling his love for her deepen in ways he hadn't known were possible, about recognizing that she is not just his partner but the heart of their family, the one who holds everything together when the pressures of royal life threaten to pull them apart. He expresses particular admiration for how Mary has protected their children's innocence and humanity while preparing them for the roles they will one day have to assume, managing the impossible balance between preparing them for extraordinary responsibility and allowing them to simply be children. The poem reportedly includes a section of apology and acknowledgement of the difficulties their relationship has faced. Frederik writes about the times his duties pulled him away from family moments, about decisions he made regarding family matters that hurt people Mary loved, about the weight she has had to carry as his partner during moments of crisis and uncertainty. Without explicitly naming the situation with Prince Joachim and the stripping of his children's titles, the poem apparently alludes to family pain and to times when Frederik's choices as crown prince and now as king have come at personal cost to those he loves. He writes about watching Mary navigate these difficult situations with dignity and grace, about her wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, about her ability to hold space for complexity and pain without becoming bitter or resentful. This section has been described as particularly moving because it shows Frederik's awareness of what his position has cost Mary, and his gratitude that she has borne these costs without losing the essential warmth and authenticity that first drew him to her. In the poem's central verses, Frederik attempts to capture what Mary means to him not just as wife and mother, but as his essential companion in the extraordinary burden of kingship. According to those familiar with the poem, Frederik writes about the loneliness that can exist even in the most public life, about being surrounded by people yet feeling fundamentally alone in the weight of responsibility and duty. He describes Mary as the one person who truly sees him, who knows the difference between King Frederik and simply Frederik, who reminds him of who he is beneath the role he has to play. The verses apparently use imagery of light and darkness. Mary is the light he returns to after navigating the shadows of difficult decisions and lonely responsibilities. Mary is the warmth that makes the cold formality of official life bearable. Mary is the truth that cuts through the careful diplomacy and managed communications that define so much of royal existence. Frederik writes about moments of crisis when Mary's steady presence kept him grounded, about times when her wisdom changed his perspective or her humor lifted spirits that protocol demanded remain formally somber. The poem's imagery, as it has been described, draws heavily on Danish landscape and maritime tradition, grounding this very personal love story in the nation they serve together. Frederik writes about Mary as his North Star, guiding him through difficult passages. He compares their partnership to the sturdy Danish ships that have weathered North Sea storms for centuries, built to last, designed to weather harsh conditions, beautiful in their functional strength. He describes their love as having the endurance of Danish oak, the depth of Danish winter, the brightness of Danish summer's endless days. These images serve double duty, expressing his feelings for Mary while also connecting their personal love story to the nation and traditions they represent, suggesting that their partnership is not separate from their royal duties but integral to them, that who they are together makes them better servants of Denmark. In what sources describe as the poem's most intimate section, Frederik writes about the small private moments that sustain their relationship despite the public nature of their lives. He describes the feeling of Mary's hand in his during difficult public appearances, the comfort of her presence beside him in bed after exhausting days, the sound of her laughter in private moments when they can drop the royal formality and simply be together. He writes about inside jokes and shared memories that no one else would understand, about the private language that long-married couples develop, about the comfort of being with someone who knows you so completely that words often become unnecessary. These verses apparently reveal a tenderness and vulnerability that the usually reserved king rarely shows publicly, offering a glimpse of the private Frederik that only Mary and their closest family members normally see. The poem's conclusion, according to those familiar with it, returns to the theme of gratitude and wonder that such love has been possible despite the extraordinary constraints of their circumstances. Frederik writes about looking at Mary after 20 years together and still feeling echoes of that first moment in Sydney, still seeing the woman who captured his heart before she knew he was a prince, still feeling grateful beyond measure that she chose this complicated, demanding, often impossible life with him. He acknowledges that their journey together is far from over, that challenges and uncertainties lie ahead, but expresses complete confidence that whatever comes, they will face it together as they have faced everything else, with love, with partnership, with the strength that comes from genuine connection. The final lines apparently express a simple but profound sentiment, that among all the titles he has held and will hold, among all the roles he has played and will play, the one he values most is being Mary's partner, her companion, her love. That if he is remembered for nothing else, he hopes to be remembered as the man who was worthy of Mary Donaldson's love and who spent his life trying to deserve that extraordinary gift. The existence of this poem became known through the kind of discreet leak that often happens in royal circles. Someone close to the couple, moved by what they had seen or heard, sharing just enough information to convey the poem's existence and general content without betraying the specific privacy of its complete text. The leak appears to have been motivated not by malice but by genuine affection for the royal couple and perhaps a desire to share with the Danish people this evidence of the authentic love that sustains their king and queen. In the current climate where so much about the royal family is subject to speculation and skepticism, this glimpse into Frederik's private romantic expression has been received by most Danes as a gift, evidence that the fairy tale they have believed in is real, that the partnership they have admired is genuine, that their king and queen are not just performing roles but actually living a love story worthy of the poetry that attempts to capture it. The Danish public's reaction to the revelation of this poem has been overwhelmingly positive and deeply emotional. Social media has filled with expressions of admiration for King Frederik's romantic gesture, with many Danes expressing that it makes them proud to have a king who is not ashamed to express love and vulnerability, who recognizes and honors the woman beside him with such evident devotion. The poem has sparked countless conversations about love, partnership, and what it means to maintain romance and genuine connection across decades of marriage. Some Danes have reported being moved to tears by even the second-hand descriptions of the poem's content, finding in Frederik's words expressions of feelings they themselves have struggled to articulate about their own long-term partnerships. The general sentiment seems to be that in revealing his heart through poetry, King Frederik has made himself more relatable and more admirable, demonstrating that strength and sensitivity, royal dignity and romantic vulnerability, can coexist in the same person. Literary scholars and poetry experts who have heard descriptions of the poem have generally praised its apparent quality, noting that it seems to avoid the pitfalls of amateur romantic poetry, excessive sentimentality, cliched imagery, or awkward meter and rhyme. According to these experts, Frederik's verses demonstrate genuine poetic sensibility, using concrete imagery and specific details rather than generic romantic language, grounding emotional expression in the particular realities of his and Mary's shared experience rather than abstract declarations. The Danish language itself, with its particular rhythms and sounds, apparently lends itself well to Frederik's poetic expression, and those who have heard portions of the poem recited describe it as genuinely moving rather than embarrassing or mawkish. This suggests that Frederik's education, which included significant humanities and cultural study, equipped him not just for ceremonial kingship but also for authentic creative expression. The timing of this poem's revelation is particularly poignant given the various challenges and uncertainties the Danish royal house has faced in 2024. In a year marked by questions about the monarchy's future, by family tensions and public scrutiny, by the enormous pressures of Frederik's transition from crown prince to king, this poem stands as a reminder of what sustains him through all of it: his partnership with Mary, the love they have built and maintained despite extraordinary circumstances, the private emotional reality that makes public duty possible. It suggests that whatever happens to the institution of monarchy, whatever challenges and changes lie ahead, Frederik and Mary have something real and enduring that transcends crowns and titles and constitutional roles. Some observers have noted that in writing this poem, King Frederik is participating in a long tradition of royal poetry and romantic expression. Throughout history, monarchs and nobles have often been patrons and practitioners of poetry, using verse to express feelings that formal prose couldn't capture. From medieval troubadours composing for noble ladies to Renaissance princes who were also accomplished poets, from Queen Elizabeth I's own poetry to more recent examples of royals expressing themselves through creative writing, Frederik's poem places him in a lineage of royals who recognize that power and position don't preclude, and perhaps even necessitate, outlets for authentic emotional expression. In this context, the poem is not just a private romantic gesture but a connection to centuries of tradition where those who bore great public responsibility found in poetry a space for private truth and vulnerable expression. The poem has also sparked broader conversations about masculinity, vulnerability, and emotional expression, with many commentators noting that King Frederik's willingness to express love through poetry challenges stereotypes about what male strength looks like. In an era when toxic masculinity and emotional repression are increasingly recognized as harmful, a king writing love poetry to his wife and having that poetry received as admirable rather than weak represents a powerful cultural statement. Frederik demonstrates that a man can be strong enough to be vulnerable, powerful enough to express tenderness, regal enough to write love poetry without diminishing his authority or dignity. This message resonates particularly with younger Danes who are rethinking traditional gender roles and seeking models of masculinity that include emotional intelligence and authentic expression. So here's what we want to know from you. What do you think of King Frederik expressing his love for Queen Mary through poetry? Do you find it romantic and admirable, or does some part of you question whether it's appropriate for a king to be so publicly vulnerable about private feelings? And in your own life, how do you express deep love and appreciation to your partner? Are grand gestures or quiet everyday actions more meaningful? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives on love, romance, and what makes relationships beautiful and enduring. And make sure you stay subscribed to B News for more stories about the Danish royal family and the love story that continues to captivate not just Denmark but the entire world. King Frederik's poem to Queen Mary reminds us that beneath every title and role, beneath every public persona and official duty, there are simply human hearts seeking connection, expressing love, and finding in partnership the strength to face whatever challenges come. And that is perhaps the most beautiful story of all.